Hey, it's Squidly. Let's try a new recipe or two. So I'm in my backyard and I'm about to experiment with a couple of different recipes I've been wanting to try. You're going to find here in just a second that they're pretty similar. But the point of all this is that I'm getting pretty tired of the same old stuff that I always take for supper on the trail. And usually what that means is I'm taking a Mountain House meal, and I just wanted to try something different. I just want to experiment with something that's not the same old thing. I've been thinking about it. I've had some ideas in mind, and so what I wanted to do was experiment with them. And I thought, well, while I'm experimenting with them, I'll just make a video of it and share the results. Right now, I have no idea how those results are going to turn out. This might be really good, and this might be hot garbage. We're about to find out. So, what are the requirements for these meals? Well, first of all, like all backpackers, it needs to be lightweight. That may be a bigger requirement for me because in addition to my regular contents of a food bag that would be for everybody, I also have to carry, because I'm diabetic, what I call my emergency food bag. And that emergency food bag includes one complete whole meal and a lot of extra snack stuff in case my sugar were to drop, or if a meal weren't enough, or just for whatever my circumstances are. I have said before, maybe not on this channel, but I've told friends this anyway, that one of the biggest mistakes as a backpacker that you can make is to take something out on the trail that you intend to put together and cook and eat, and you've never experimented with it before. And so you may get out there and find out, one, that it's not palatable, or two, that there's just something wrong with it, that you can't eat it, or it just fails and you end up with a meal that you can't eat. In my opinion, that's one of the biggest mistakes that a backpacker can make. Ask me how I know. One thing I've wanted to experiment with is soup mixes. Now, I don't think that just a soup mix by itself is going to be hearty enough. I don't think it's going to be as filling as it needs to be or have enough calories. And so that's the reason why I'll be mixing some of the things today, is for kind of end of the day satisfaction with having enough that you feel satisfied when you go to sleep. But also in my case, with being diabetic, I've got to add some protein to it so that it becomes filling enough. It also slows down digestion. There's a whole conversation here about being diabetic, but it slows it down enough that I don't get a huge spike in my blood sugar. Okay, so all of that to say, all right, what is it that I'm putting together? So it's a couple of things that are just basic. I'm going to be boiling some ramen noodles, and the first attempt at this with this recipe, I'm going to do this without the flavor packet. So really it'll just be noodles, and I'm going to add some Lipton French onion soup mix to it. Now I'm not going to add this whole thing. What I'm going to do is add maybe a quarter of it and add just a little bit more at a time until I get a good feel for how much needs to be added to the ramen to make this good, and then let's hope that in the end that it comes out to be good. And then also for the protein, I'll be adding a packet of chicken. Another requirement for this meal, or any meal that I'm going to do, is it either has to be just boil water and add the water to the bag, or if I'm actually going to cook it and have to do a little simmering, which I will for this one, it's all got to go in the 750 milliliter pot. At the end of the experiment today, if all of this turns out well and it comes out to be something that I might enjoy on the trail, I'm going to take the ingredients and put them in a Ziploc bag, because I have a trip coming up in about 2 weeks, and I'm going to put those ingredients in the bag so that at the end of hiking that day, all I have to do is put the ingredients in the 750 milliliter pot and bring it to a boil, maybe simmer for just a little while, and have a meal. Okay, so let's get started. Obviously, I'm not on trail, but the only way to really simulate this and make it so that it's authentic and you get kind of how it's going to turn out on trail is to get as close to trail conditions as you can. So I'm going to use my stove, a fuel canister, and my 750 milliliter pot. I used the Ziploc bag to break up the ramen because I found that they don't break up very well in the packaging it comes in, and you end up with ramen all over the place. So I'm going to go ahead and add this while this comes to a boil. Now, you might be wondering why I decided to do this without the flavoring pack, and the reason actually is pretty simple. There are two reasons. One is that French onion soup already has a pretty strong flavor, and two is both of them are loaded in sodium. And so if I were to do both of them, I think it would just be a big salt lick. It would just be too much. So I'm going to try it without the flavor pack and with the soup first, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so we've come to a boil, and now let's take it off. In fact, it boiled over a little bit. All ramen really needs at this point is maybe 60 more seconds or so, and it'll be ready to eat, except that it will not be very flavorful. So the one package of ramen fits in the 750 milliliter pot with plenty of room to spare. So that satisfies one of the requirements, is that all would prepare in one pot. And now for the French onion soup mix, I'm going to add, that's about a third of it. And I think it's going to be hot enough that I'm not really going to have to let it simmer. But again, this is an experiment, so we'll see. You know, while I'm waiting for this to rehydrate, what's really going to be embarrassing is if there's a such thing as French onion ramen. I've never heard of that, but if it already exists, this is a complete waste of effort. All right, this really does smell good. Yeah, that's good. It may need more of the soup mix, because that is not very strong. But I think I've erred on the right side by not adding the ramen flavor packet. I think that would just be way too much. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the soup mix. Yeah. Might end up adding the whole thing. If I end up having to add the whole thing, that would really simplify this whole recipe. It would just be one package of ramen, one little pouch of the soup mix, and one package of chicken, which I haven't added yet. I guess I can go ahead and add that while this is rehydrating and cooling to where I can eat it. So with the ramen, the soup mix, and the chicken, it still fits in this 750 milliliter pot without any trouble. All right, my initial impression is that is pretty dang good. I still think I need some more of the soup mix, but I'm gonna wait for it to cool a little bit more. where I can really dig in and kind of see how it turns out. All right, first impression is that is really good, but I want to add some more of the soup mix. So I may end up using, maybe not all of it, but maybe close to all of it. Let's just see. And of course, on trail, it's one of those things where if I were to have a little bit too much of the soup mix, I could just add a little bit more water. I have plenty of room to add a little bit more water and thin it out if I needed to, but that's part of the point of experimenting with it now, to kind of see how it goes. But I think this is going to be good, and I'm going to be taking this in a couple of weeks on my next trip. Oh yeah, that's much better. Man, that's good. Okay, so I used about 3/4. No, I used nearly all of it. For the amount of water I have in here, I have almost, not quite, I have almost added too much of the soup mix. So I think where I am is probably just right, but I would not want to add any more. And I added all but about a teaspoon. I mean, there's just not much left in here. But the flavor-wise, this is fantastic, and I got the amount that I'm adding from the packet, I got it just right. And it is really good. I was also afraid that the chicken would take something away from the French onion flavor, because I've obviously never had French onion soup with meat in it. But this is not bad at all. As good as this is, and it's a winner. There are a couple of things that in the future I might add to it, just to see if it adds something a little bit different to it, to make it even better. And I'm thinking maybe 3 or 4 leaves of spinach, or maybe some dehydrated mushrooms. I think all could add something to this to make it even better than it is. But this is good. I will definitely be doing this on the trail. All right, so this is a winner. I will be taking this on my next trip. This will be a kind of a welcome change from most of the food that I typically do. And remember, anytime that you're going to be trying something different on the trail, experiment with it at home first, just to make sure that it's going to be something that you can eat on the trail. Because if you're out there and this is the one meal for that day and you don't have any to change it out, then you're just sort of stuck with it, and it's either eat it or just not eat for that night. And of course, my situation being what it is with being diabetic, I can't just do that. I can't just skip a meal. So thanks for sticking around as long as you have. And as always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the way out.